Are the divine beings that millions of people worship just a product of the human imagination? It's a huge question, and a recent discussion on the popular Beer Biceps podcast brought this up, suggesting that Hindu gods were basically manufactured by people. Well, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating counterargument that challenges this whole modern view, framing it not as mythology, but as a misunderstood science. So let's get into it.
So here it is, the core question you hear more and more these days. Are these deities just ideas people came up with to give a face to a formless concept of God? It makes a certain kind of sense, right? But the viewpoint we're exploring today argues that actually this perspective misses the point entirely, and that there's a much, much deeper reality at play. And that direct rebuttal, it comes from Osman, who you might know as the blind Muslim yogi. In one of his videos, he sets out to completely debunk this popular theory. His whole argument is that what many of us just dismiss as imagination is, in fact, a revealed science.
Okay, so to break this all down, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. We'll start by really understanding this modern myth that he's challenging. Then, we'll explore the 2 paths to the divine, look into something called the science of mantras, touch on realms beyond perception, and finally, we'll redefine a key term that might be the source of all the confusion, the whole idea of gods versus beings.
So, let's kick things off with this modern myth, the idea that gods are simply human inventions. That's a powerful and pretty common idea in our time, but the person challenging this has a really unique perspective. So to understand his argument, we first have to understand a little bit about him.
Our guide through all this is Osman, and he's not just a casual commentator. As he lays out in his own work, he's a master-level bioenergy healer with 5 decades. That's 50 years of deep practice in yoga and meditation. He studied under masters from all sorts of traditions across the globe, even with scientific communities, which gives him this really unique blend of experience to draw from.
And one important disclaimer he's always very clear about. He stresses that his therapies are natural and are meant to complement, not replace, conventional medical treatment. Super important to know.
Okay, so how does he build his argument? Well, it starts by tackling that big idea that God is formless. It turns out that's not the whole story, not by a long shot. In fact, within the Indian scriptures themselves, there's this incredibly rich and complex debate on this very topic. And this lays it out perfectly. You've basically got 2 major schools of thought. On one side, there's Advaita, or non-dualism. This path sees God as formless, and the ultimate goal is for your individual ego to just completely dissolve into this cosmic oneness. But then you have Bhakti, the devotional path. And here, God is a form, and the goal isn't to disappear at all, but to keep your individuality and find joy in serving that divine form. 2 very different goals.
So the crucial point here is that even for people who experience that cosmic oneness, it doesn't have to mean yourself is just annihilated. Osman brings up the mystic Gopi Krishna, who used this powerful analogy. Think of a raindrop. It can merge with the ocean and totally become the ocean, but it can also emerge again, still as a drop. You can touch the infinite and still come back as you.
Now we get to the absolute heart of the argument. And it's really important to know, when the source talks about a science, it's referring to a metaphysical science, a system of repeatable causes and effects inside of consciousness itself. So this isn't about imagination versus reality. It's about a specific technology that is said to connect sound, form, and consciousness.
And that whole technology centers on the mantra. See, a mantra isn't just a nice little chant or an affirmation you say to yourself. In this context, it's defined as a revealed sound form. And that word, revealed, is everything. The claim is that ancient sages didn't invent these sounds, they received them, almost like discovering a fundamental law of physics.
This slide basically lays out the process like a scientific formula. It starts with the mantra, a very specific sound vibration. That sound corresponds directly to a yantra, which is a precise geometric pattern. And when that mantra is recited correctly, the sound and the geometry are said to make manifest the Deva or Devi, the conscious being connected to them. It's presented as a direct, repeatable cause and effect relationship.
So if these beings are real, where do they even exist? Well, this brings us to the whole concept of realms that are operating way beyond our everyday perception. And it's an idea that actually has some surprising parallels in both ancient knowledge and modern experiences.
Get this. We think modern physics is super cutting edge when it talks about maybe 11 dimensions in string theory. But according to Osman, the ancient yoga sciences were talking about 114 dimensions. The idea here is that our physical world is just this tiny little slice of a much bigger cosmos, and these other dimensions are home to beings that exist at a way higher frequency than we do. Now, to make this feel a little less abstract, Osman points to a modern phenomenon, the experiences of DMT users. He points out that people all over the world who have never met often report encountering the exact same specific entities or beings during their experiences. This suggests that maybe they aren't just personal hallucinations, but maybe, just maybe, they're encounters in a shared, alternate dimension of reality.
And this leads us to our final and maybe the most important section of all. The argument goes that a lot of this confusion, this whole debate, really just comes down to a simple problem of translation. We're just using the wrong words to describe these concepts.
This table just clears it right up. The English word gods is basically a misnomer. The correct Sanskrit terms are devas and devis, which literally means effulgent beings, entities made of light, existing in those higher frequency realms. This is completely different from the concept of Brahman, which refers to the one, absolute, formless, singular God, a principle that is considered totally beyond all conception, beyond anything the human mind can grasp.
So to bring it all home, the central argument is this. The devas and devis, which we have often mistranslated as gods, are not products of the human imagination. They are presented as real, conscious entities that existed long before humanity. And the knowledge of how to connect with them through this science of mantras wasn't invented, it was revealed to ancient sages.
This entire framework, this whole perspective, comes from the work of Osman, the blind Muslim yogi, who explores these topics in way more depth. So if any of this sparked your curiosity and you want to learn more directly from the source, you can find all of his work on his website.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If we just entertain this idea for a second, that specific sounds act like keys that can unlock doorways to other dimensions and connect us with other forms of consciousness, well, that reframes our entire understanding of reality. It just begs the question, what other doors are out there, and what other keys have we yet to discover?